All right, so let's do this. First off, thanks everyone for joining us today. This is a very exciting webinar called The Next Coffee Generation, Insights for Youth Professionals. And this series is led by the International Trade Center. So we're really thrilled to have all of you here today. And we're looking forward to sharing some insights into coffee with all of the youth in the audience. But before we get started and introduce our amazing speakers for today, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Giulia Macola, who's here from the ITC Alliances for Action team with lots of expertise in the coffee sector. So over to you, Giulia.
Thank you, Claire. So welcome, everybody. We're very happy to have you all here at this webinar. Let me present myself. My name is Giulia Macola. I'm part of the Alliances for Action team in ITC, and I'm also in charge of the coordination of the Coffee Guide. You might know, I hope, that the Coffee Guide is one of the flagship publication of ITC, and it is one of the most downloaded document from ITC. This new version, the third version, was published last year in October. And what is really important here is that it is a result of a co-creation process from the conceptualization to the publishing, basically with more than 70 stakeholders from all around the coffee industry. So it's a really valuable resource, including for youth, we think. So I would, before we start, I would encourage everybody to download the Coffee Guide at our website. So this webinar, as the Coffee Guide, has been organized in partnerships with different organizations such as CLAC, Fairtrade Africa, ACRAM, ACP, the EU, which we would all like to acknowledge and thank, of course. And of course, in ITC, it's a, let's say, joint collaboration of two teams, the Alliances for Action team, together with YE, represented here by Claire. So lastly, before I pass it back to Claire, I would just like to highlight that, of course, youth, and the opportunities and challenges that youth encounter in the coffee sector will be discussed today. And you can also find some really interesting information. And I think all a chapter about this in the Coffee Guide. So again, it's an important document that you can read, maybe for inspiration after the webinar. So thank you again very much for being here, and I give it back for Claire for the moderation of the webinar, and also thanks to the panelists. So have a good one.
Thanks so much, Giulia. And just so everyone is aware, for all of those calling in from Latin America or in Francophone Africa, we do have French and Spanish translation for this webinar. So feel free to click the interpretation button, and then you can access the webinar in different languages. So let's jump right into it. The purpose of this webinar is really to inspire youth who are interested or working in the coffee sector, and to share with you relevant information from those who are actually out there doing it, as well as providing you with tools on how to get involved in the sector so that you feel ready and willing to jump in. We're also going to be showcasing best practices and testimonies from youth and experts alike, and discussing how you as young people can find your niche in this sector. We're, of course, going to be rolling this out over the course of the next 2 months with lots of incredible speakers. So this isn't a one-off series. I believe we have 8 episodes coming your way. You've actually registered for all of them by being part of this one today. So be sure to tune into these at the same time every week with a different topic that we'll be discussing. So now let's get to the experts in the room. First off, I'm excited to introduce you all to Joel Arusha. Joel is a coffee farmer entrepreneur and global supply chain professional who is passionate about working on smallholder farmers' empowerment. He is actively engaged in advocating for the socioeconomic rights in communities through education and youth empowerment. He has a high level of practical, technical, and professional marketing competencies, and is specialized in the coffee value chain analysis, with an emphasis on rewarding producers fairly. Joel has thrived as part of an effective team with more than 5 years of experience in sales and procurement, where he demonstrates strong analytical skills working within high-pressure environments. Beyond all this, he is also a regular swimmer and a runner, and is enthusiastic about practicing mindfulness and the art of being peaceful and happy. So welcome, Joel. Thanks so much for joining. And wow, that's a great bio. So let's go to our next. Thanks, Joel. So our next amazing speaker is Stephanie Davila Hemmerling. Stephanie is a coffee farmer, international commerce trainer, and social entrepreneur. She is originally from Guatemala, but is now based in Portland, Oregon. She is the founder and manager of Coffee Farmers Alliance and NCafe Negocios, NCafe Business School, for those in English. The mission of NCafe Business School is to provide tools and resources on international trade of coffee as a mechanism to promote the economic sustainability of coffee growing. So welcome, Stephanie. Thanks to you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great.
It's an absolute pleasure.
We are thrilled to have both of you. So let's just jump right into it. I would love to hear from you both what you feel are the major trends happening today that are shaping the way the coffee industry works and operates. So Stephanie, let's hear from you first.
Okay, yeah, I think I would like to share my slide now. I have a slide for this, but it says host disabled participant sharing. So let's check it out. In the meantime, I'll tell you what we see in the coffee sector right now is a mix of opportunities and challenges. I think this has always been the case, but especially right now, the challenges are a little more obvious. But at the same time, we have the opportunity of a growing coffee sector, growing consumption, at least in the United States. Okay, so let me.
You should be able to share now.
Okay, let's see. Just a moment. Okay, let me know if you see this.
Yes, we can see it.
So this is an overview of some notes recently posted by the NCA on the NCA blog. The National Coffee Association is the largest and probably, if not the oldest, one of the oldest associations in the coffee sector. And they have been doing this consumer trends survey for, I think, more than 100 years now. So this is the latest edition. It's a spring 2022. It was just released a couple of weeks ago. And according to this, this new release, they say that national coffee consumption is at a 2-decade high. Okay, so 14% increase in daily drinkers, and it is the largest one since that the NCA has seen. So we're seeing like people are drinking more coffee and they want to drink more coffee. The second thing is that the pandemic continues to impact the way that Americans drink coffee. So OOO, which is here, it means out of home consumption, has not gotten back to pre-pandemic levels yet. That means coffee shops, restaurants are not serving the same quantity of coffee they used to serve before the pandemic, but the at-home consumption remains high. So during the pandemic, we saw that all the establishments were closed, but we saw a wonderful boom in the e-commerce, especially for roasters directly to the consumers. The third point is that the popularity of specialty coffee is at a 5-year high. That means that people are just preferring to drink coffee over other drinks. Remember that when we're talking about the beverage space, we're competing not only coffee with coffee or one origin versus the other, we're competing coffee versus other types of energy drinks, basically, because that's with the space where coffee competes. And still in that space, coffee is a favorite, okay? And then the fourth thing is that Americans love espresso-based beverages like cappuccinos and lattes, which are tied in the first place, and then there comes other coffees. But what this tells us is that there's also a trend of darker roast coffees. Instead, like we had a very marked trend of light roasted coffees, like from 2000, probably 15 or 13 to 2016, something like that. And then that trend is dead, basically. Nobody wants light roasted coffees anymore. There's probably a few drinkers, but it's not the main trend anymore because Americans are loving espresso-based coffee beverages, and that requires darker roast. So all an increase in people saying that they drink specialty coffee, which is very interesting because this is the highest in this survey that people had replied to the question, do you drink specialty coffee? And they say yes, which tell us two things. One, there's a shift in the mindset and the head of people saying, okay, I drink specialty coffee. What does specialty coffee mean? So there is like a semantic change there and change of like the way people perceive coffee. But there's also a general increase in quality. We have seen, and we have been seeing this trend as well, for example, with Cup of Excellence having to raise the scores at which the coffees are to be auctioned, because now people are putting more care and more emphasis in the way they process, and that allows for a lot of more people achieving higher scored coffees. So that's basically what we're seeing, and those are my points of view here from what I see in the US, and also from in Latin America. What I see is also this same explosion, a little bit like it was in the US 5 years ago, maybe like growth in specialty coffee drinking, especially in urban areas. There's more room for specialty coffees. There's local coffee roasters are just booming. There's a lot of new offers, which give us a lot of new opportunities, especially for the youth.
Amazing. Thank you, Stephanie. I was definitely taking note there. And I think I'm one of that 14% increase in daily drinkers. My coffee consumption has definitely gone up during the pandemic. So Joel, let's hear from you now. What do you see in Rwanda or across sub-Saharan Africa as the major trends that are shaping the industry and the way it operates?
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Yeah, to answer to that question, I will give you an example of what's happening in Rwanda, one of the world's producing countries of special coffee, like you just mentioned. And despite the huge potential of the coffee sector, what we're seeing is that the young and educated do not engage in coffee production. This is because of especially low return and limited access to land. And one of the other biggest challenges we're seeing in the sector is old farmers, as I mentioned. So despite that, for example, in Rwanda, the median age is 20. Rwanda is, of course, one of the young countries we have. The average age of a coffee farmer is 51 years old. We're seeing such a huge difference in age for a coffee farmer and what we would call Rwandan age, since the median age of Rwandans is 20. So this poses a challenge on the future of coffee production. If Rwanda is well positioned to produce top high quality of coffee, that's one of the challenges we're seeing. But I'm here as a president of a first ever youth coffee cooperative created in 2019 to ensure that special coffee has a growing future. We are a group of 29 young men born from coffee farmers, and we hope that by joining forces together and building a strong community of new farmers, we can ensure that there is a future of growing this magic drink we probably most of us enjoy every morning. So the other thing that we're seeing all trees. This is specifically probably similar case in some of other producing countries. We're seeing all trees and all technology, where, for example, in Rwanda, more than 30% of all coffee trees are above 30 years. And this is according to one of the censuses conducted.
Maybe lost Joel for a bit. Hopefully he comes back. I think his connection might have broken. That happens sometimes. So hopefully he can come back and expand on that more, because yes, this 30% of trees in Rwanda being more than 30 years old is definitely a concern for the future of the industry. So moving on to our next question. Stephanie, I would love to know, where do you see the opportunities, particularly for youth within the coffee sector? What can you share from your experiences being a young person in the sector?
Of course. And before we move there, Clara, I'm sorry, I kind of gave the bright side and the like what I see the market going, but I also have some comments about the challenges, if that's okay.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay. So the challenges right now, especially Central America, we have seen one of the largest exodus like in history. There's a lot of people migrating, poverty, violence, and food insecurity, among other reasons. But then this is a report from World Vision, and they say that in June of 2021, they saw the highest number ever seen for one single month in 20 years. So we see a massive, massive exit of people immigrating to the United States, and that has an impact locally as well, of course. So what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing scarce and expensive labor. So producing coffee right now is very expensive, even more expensive than ever. We have, right now we're dealing with high cost of fertilizers and fuel. I mean, the fuel situation is generalized, but the fertilizers are just people who's farming probably see this part, right? And for example, for us, the cost of the fertilizer we usually apply just doubled up from last year to this year, which is very hard to deal with, because you're trying to be sustainable. You're already struggling with prices that don't come full circle, creating a profit and sustainable business. And then we encounter these higher costs that make it so much more challenging for us to know what's coming in the future. Then we have, in the case of Guatemala, for example, we have a very strong currency. So the exchange rate doesn't help, which is the case in other countries like Colombia, maybe Brazil, that their currency is not so fixed, so it moves and it allows more income for the same amount of dollars. Instead, Guatemalans, El Salvador uses dollars already, so they don't see any benefit. Honduras, I think it's a little going up and down. Nicaragua is in a very tough position politically speaking as well. And Costa Rica is a very expensive country, and their currency, even though they're not officially using dollars, they use dollars mostly everywhere. So that situation about the exchange rate is generalized. And in case of Guatemala, we're also seeing a huge volume of money remittances from the US from all the people who have been migrating. So that influxes money into the economy, but also young people in rural areas don't see the value in working in harvesting, in working as a farmer anymore, because they're just receiving money from abroad. And not to mention the climate effects that I think that's general, we're all living that, and pest control expenses, because it has been so expensive to find people to harvest that some of the last fruit stays in the tree, and then it produces a problem with the coffee border. And that is the situation right now, talking about challenges. So now Joel's back. I don't know if he wants to probably finish his thoughts.
Yeah, sorry about the connectivity issue. I was kind of mentioning about what's happening in the country, taking an example. We're seeing youth do not want to engage in coffee, but I still believe there is opportunity to tackle youth unemployment. And it's a win-win situation to see where even the coffee sector needs to engage the youth for the innovation needed. Youth are energetic, and I think they embrace technology, and we're seeing more of new stuff happening as we engage the youth. So I still believe we probably talk more about that, but we still hope that there is opportunity for the youth in the coffee sector, and there's benefits for the coffee sector as well, to engage the youth to ensure that the innovation required for the sector is continuing and is ongoing. Yeah.
Thanks, Joel, and we're glad you were able to rejoin. So Stephanie was just mentioning some of the challenges. You also, in your introduction, mentioned some challenges as well. One of the ones that I caught on to was this 30% of trees in Rwanda are more than 30 years old, and this poses a severe risk. But maybe we can turn on a more positive note. And I'd like to ask you, Joel, again, because you were just speaking about what you're doing with youth. Where do the opportunities lie in coffee specifically for youth? What do you see in your work day to day?
Yeah, so myself, because I think there's great opportunity in the sector, especially if we think about, again, Rwanda, 1 in 5 youth are unemployed. And to see, when I think about the coffee sector, this is one of the ideal candidate for youth employment. And if we can train the youth to see their coffee from seed to cup. Today, 95% of the coffee is exported, but if we really can see and train the youth to see their coffee farms as the means of earning profit, that means from seed to cup, then we can grow them into farmer entrepreneur who can accelerate the innovation we've kind of talked about needed for the viable coffee sector. I see an opportunity for youth to tackle unemployment rather than moving from rural areas going to cities looking for jobs. There's ways we can train them. We can help see their small piece of land or their few coffee trees as a means of earning profit. And we've started doing that. We see huge changes as even youth, we're taking over some coffee plantations that were abandoned by local farmers, and we hope to utilize our land to start earning something out of it. So, because that's on the production level, we can, for example, giving you another example, when I planted my first few trees, my friends thought I was crazy and probably wasting resources. But the price for cherries had tripled this year. So now it's not that is probably a good thing, but on the farmer level, it's a good thing because we're seeing farmers earning more profit from their coffee cherries. And not only from that, if we can then, apart from the production, earning some profit from production, we can train them to see, again, their coffees in a cup. When you look at a coffee in a cup, that's more valuable compared to selling your coffees as cherries. If we can engage this youth in the production to see their coffee trees as a way to earn more profit by adding value to their produce, then there's opportunities to employ more youth in the sector. And as we have more youth joining the sector, I think it's a good way to receive more innovation, more ideas coming from the young people, because I believe they're not only the leaders of tomorrow, but as well as the leaders of today, since they've shown to have more ideas, more power to change things, especially those strategies that we've kind of talked about. So I see benefits on both sides. Youth could get employed in the sector, and as well as the sector has a lot to gain from having the youth engaged in the sector. Yeah.
Great. So it's really a win-win in that the sector can employ youth, but also that youth can bring their fresh ideas and their new ventures to the sector. So that's really cool. Thanks, Joel. So Stephanie, now over to you. What are you seeing as opportunities in Latin America and North America as well?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say that the internet access opens the door to a wide range of new opportunities. We are seeing a lot of, at least in Central America, again, a widespread of smartphones, right? They're everywhere. And every time access to internet is less expensive, which opens a lot of opportunities for self-education in the first place, communication channels, new ways to reach people, the right people. And we're talking about mentors, potential customers, etc. Language barriers have been also lowered. Now we have videos with closed captions, apps that allow you to translate. They won't be 100%, but we can communicate. I have a customer, 4 years ago, I connected a small farmer from Guatemala with a roaster from Australia, and he doesn't speak English, and the roaster doesn't speak Spanish, and they manage to communicate just by using Google Translator, and they have done great. When they find a roadblock, they call me and I help, but most of the time they're just talking and they communicate on their own. So it's super impressive what this can do nowadays. There's access to information nowadays, which there was not in the past. Like the coffee sector has been characterized by being a very closed sector. When we don't talk about prices at destination, we barely know what other people are doing. That was the past. I think right now we are seeing much more access to information, like the specialty coffee guide, coffee transaction guide, for example, is a wonderful resource to see what are in general the prices and what's coffee being traded at. It's a wonderful, wonderful information there. Not to mention the coffee guide, of course, which is one of my favorite all-time resources. And yeah, there's a lot there that we can access nowadays. And there's also growth in the e-commerce and the drop shipping. So doing business, even internationally, it's more, well, it's less expensive, it's easier nowadays, and there are ways to do it without you having to be here, for example, in the United States. So I think this opens a lot of new opportunities. We're seeing in what areas, for example, I see home roasting being one of them. Home roasting is in the United States, it's growing a lot. Obviously, roasted coffee, in all the region, it's growing. The specialty coffee consumption is growing, so that opens the opportunity to roasted coffee. And another thing that's happening is shared roasting spaces. In the past, you needed to buy and have your own roaster in order to be able to roast and sell roasted coffee. Nowadays, there's a boom in collaborative spaces where you can rent a roaster by the hour, and it's not happening only here, it's happening also in origin countries, as I was saying, in Latin America, right? Or you can do toll roasting, right? You can bring your coffee and somebody roasts it for you. So the entry barrier to selling roasted coffee is lower nowadays. There's a huge growth in the ready to drink beverages. So RTD means ready to drink. And we're talking about canned coffee, bottled coffee, cold brew, or iced coffee with milk and sugar, which is the trendiest thing, right? So there's a lot of opportunity in that space as well, and it's growing everywhere. Cold brew coffee is just expanding. It's not that difficult to make. Like everybody could start making and selling cold brew coffee in their own areas, especially if you live in a hot area, right? Who wouldn't like to drink coffee? You just need to brew it your own, and then pump a couple pumps of sugar and maybe a flavor, because that's the trend as well. Even if we want it or not, I think there's two lines of coffee. For some time we were like the purists, right? We were trying to encourage people to drink it. Black coffee, nothing added, that's the best way to enjoy your coffee. And now we're going back to, no, you know what? It's a matter of how you like it. If you want sugar in it, just go ahead, put sugar in it, right? We're being more respectful of the consumer and what the consumer wants, instead of trying to impose what we think is the right way to drink coffee. So then there's also crop diversification. We need to diversify. That's an important thing for farmers. Coffee alone is really hard to be profitable. So we need to look for ways to intercrop and to also take advantage of our land and do invest in food security by creating an orchard or growing our own vegetables. Whatever we can grow, we need to invest in that as well. And lastly, ancillary and related products, I would say. There's a growth in souvenirs, decor, coffee inspired, and coffee communities have a lot of potential if they come together as a cooperative or as a group to commercialize these type of things. And I'm going to send you in the chat a link to one very successful company from Guatemala who's doing something like this. They are not exactly coffee related, but they are seeing a lot of growth, and they're a wonderful company that's supporting women through making bracelets. So it's things like this are also a new space and opportunities.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. So I hope our audience is super inspired, because it sounds like there are a lot of opportunities. Some more that I caught on to there that I think is a really cool fact is that the industry in general is more catering to the consumer, and what the consumer wants in every part of the world is very different. I can really relate to what you said, Stephanie. Here in Europe, people tend to, like their black coffee or their cappuccinos. But I know from growing up in the US, people love their frappuccinos, all sorts of different kinds of coffee flavored beverages. So I definitely resonate with that. So thanks to you both for sharing these opportunities. I hope everyone is in the chat taking notes. So now let's switch gears, and I'd love to ask you both, what do young professionals, maybe those who are already in the industry or those who are interested in venturing into coffee, need to keep in mind to succeed? We'd love to hear, some tips, suggestions from what's worked in your experience, and even what hasn't worked as well would also be useful. So Joel, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Yeah, I think knowledge is key. I think when we think about coffee, it's from farm to cup. It's a long supply chain because it involves a lot of things. It involves, if you are the import countries, so it involves a lot of logistics to get your coffee to your country. So you have to, if you want to be in the sector, you have to know what's happening from source to the consumer level, and you have to understand, yes, the supply chain in general, and least you need to like what you do. So for myself, it helped me a lot to even tackle every challenge I'm facing. Is that this is what I wanted to do from the beginning. It's a sector I loved. So the minute I was introduced to coffee, I was like, this is where I want to be, and I wanted to do it right from the beginning. I felt like the sense of urgency to change what I saw farmers were facing back in 2015, the first time I was introduced to coffee. And since that time, that inspiration and that passion to change what I've seen at that time kept me going until today. So you have to like what you're doing. You have to have the required knowledge right from the sourcing point to the end point, and that will help you keep going, and that will help you tackle every challenge you'll be facing. It's a very interesting crop. If you're really interested in joining the coffee sector, I call it the magic crop, because for me, the minute I was introduced to it, I was like, this is it. And I've seen that happening to lots of people. The minute they're introduced to coffee, they like it and they want to do something about it. So I would encourage each and everyone interested in joining, come, especially you young people. The sector needs you, and absolutely won't regret that choice. Yeah, thanks.
Maybe I can just ask a follow-up question quickly before going to Stephanie,
Yes.
because you mentioned you're working and building youth associations in the coffee sector. How important is being part of one of these associations for a young person who's interested in getting into the sector? What role do they play in supporting the development of young coffee farmers?
I would say it's really important for us youth to take charge. So this is an association created by the youth to ensure that the specialty coffee growing has a future. It's a sign that some of the youth are really one of the agents of change, because when we talk to our parents, when we hear what was happening, they were like, this is a no-touch sector. Like, entry was very difficult, but we took it as a challenge, because some of us were into school because of coffee. So they were they were able to study because their parents has grown coffee. This was really something that inspired most of us. A few days ago, we had a ceremony. We hosted youth coming from Italy that was in Rwanda to ensure that there is this cultural exchange and learning from each other as young people. Because at the end of the time, we all want the same thing. We want to prosper. We want to grow, and we're not limited by the distances between us. Because youth, young people, all we need the energy is to continue to prosper and do something about what we see as a challenge in our community. So we joined First together because we saw there is an opportunity to self-employ ourselves in the sector, and actually act as an agent of change to ensure that the sector, what we saw was declining. There's young people who know what they've benefited from the coffee itself could do about it. So that answers exactly your question. Happy to answer any of yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, I think it ties in really well with Stephanie's point that there's so much information out there, but in fact, the more information is out there, sometimes the harder it is to sift through it and know what to read, what is beneficial. So an association, as you mentioned, can be a really good place to learn from others, figure out what information you need, and to create those networks, which are super important for young people who might not have the same experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen, since we've started that, we've even seen people who were already employed in the sector, but did not think about having their own piece of land of coffee. Because there has been a decline in the coffee production, but since we started, we've seen people, young people now starting to have their own coffee trees, which will help in the end to have those to increase the production, especially the best coffee we can grow in the country. So yeah, to add to what you said, that we're seeing this as a good thing, changing and helping the sector in general.
Yeah, no, definitely. So over to you, Stephanie, same question. What were the things that you had to keep in mind when starting up, and what were tips or I won't say tricks, but suggestions for our audience members who are interested in the sector? What can they do to succeed that maybe you did as well?
Yeah, and here I definitely, this was my slide for it, and you can see, well, I have joined a support network accordingly. That's what Joel was talking about. Join an association, join a group of people who are thinking alike and want to do something similar to what you want to do, because there's no better way than have a support network in the moments when you're like, you don't know what to do. There's going to be moments that you feel lost, that you need someone to ask a question, that you need a support network to be there for you and telling you, this is how I managed to succeed, or this is how I did it, and give you ideas. And that's very, very important. For me, the International Women in Coffee Alliance was one of those critical ones. The Guatemalan chapter, I joined, I think 2015, I don't recall exactly, but because before that, it was just, women in a male-dominated space, right? And then they see you're like a young person who doesn't know what they're doing, plus you're a woman, right? So it's like, oh, she doesn't even know what she's doing. And then having other women who are in a similar situation you can ask. And I found like the Women in Coffee Association from Guatemala is just one of the best resources. They're like so generous with the information they give. It just feels like a safe space. Nobody's going to tell you or look at you like, oh, that's a dumb question. No, right? Everybody will try just to support you and to help you thrive. So that's key. Also, other things I had here, have an entrepreneurial mindset, because entrepreneurial mindset to me means that you are problem solving all the time, looking for problems to solve. And then if you see everything as a problem to solve, you'll come with creative ways of how to solve that problem. And that will guide you through seeing also additional business opportunities that maybe you've missed before. So one resource that for me was key in this is Acumen Academy. It's a nonprofit. I highly recommend it if you speak English, because I think all of the resources are in English. I don't know if you can translate them though, but they have wonderful entry-level courses for social entrepreneurship, theories of change, systems thinking, design thinking. It's just such a good resource, even for raising funds for nonprofits. I saw there was a course coming up. The interesting thing though is that unlike other online platforms, they actually have dates in which they start every course. So they also make you work in groups. Okay, so you meet amazing people through that network. I have been able to meet people with whom I have worked later in life, and it's just a beautiful network. I highly recommend it, and I'm going to send the link in a moment. And then also apply for grants. There's grants, there's scholarships, there's programs that you can apply for. Look for those. I mean, what we need to understand is that if you want something, you need to go and make it happen. Okay, stop like sitting down and waiting for someone to come and, hey, you have wonderful coffee, I'll buy your coffee. That's not going to happen. If you want to sell your coffee, you need to go and look for someone to sell it to. If you need to take a more active role in making things happen for you. So for me, applying for grants, I was the recipient of a scholarship to study a master's program in Italy. I was the recipient of also a program sponsored by the Department of State of the United States for young entrepreneurs, but that didn't happen just because I was there, right? That happened because I said, I would like to study abroad, and started looking for an opportunity to study abroad when I couldn't fully afford it. So look for it, look for opportunities. There are plenty of opportunities out there that you can seize. The other thing I would say, if you're starting, if you're at the beginning point, I say you need to start understanding what you have and what your assets are. Like, what assets do I have in terms of what do I know? What am I passionate for? What am I good at? What do I own? A piece of land? Do I have a crop? Do I have coffee trees? What do I have? Like, start trying to understand the whole things that you have, where you can come up with creative ways on how to do more with what you have. Then where's the money in this? I'm like just saying, hey, from what I have, what can I sell? Can I sell my skills? Can I sell time? Can I sell crops? What can I sell and how do I do it? But don't just think, oh, okay, people will pay more for this. Ask, do research, validate, make sure that what you're going for is actually a good thing to go forward to pursue. What's the easiest way to get there? Ask yourself, and then it's like, okay, if I want to sell roasted coffee, what's the easiest, the leanest way to do it? Like, am I going to invest in a coffee roaster? No, just go look for someone who can give you the service, right? Start as lean as possible to make that dream come true. And then what am I missing to get there, right? That will give you ideas of what you need to learn, what skills you need to develop, and what can I realistically do right now? And that will help you create a plan, a very simple plan. And I call this the 5W frame because it's just basically questions, right? Just need to ask yourself and be realistic about what you can do, and then go and plan it. And to finish though, I just would like to show, for example, Fair is a wholesale marketplace. I think you need to have a company in the United States to access this, but I have seen products, for example, you can see a lot of coffee being offered there. This is to be sold at wholesale prices, so other businesses can come to this platform and buy coffee from you to resell it, okay? This is a wonderful resource to a wonderful marketplace. But for example, here we have this brand that is made in Colombia. So they make it, roasted in Colombia, ship it from Colombia, but they are offered here for wholesalers in the United States. So that's a wonderful opportunity for people who are in the roasting business and are already roasting coffee. Amazon, of course, but it's not that difficult to open an Amazon store. Of course, this is more strategies for a more advanced a person who's like deeper into the business already. But what I've seen though is, for example, this roasted coffee on Amazon is a little trickier because roasted coffee deteriorates over time, but green coffee doesn't go bad that fast. It can last longer and you can sell that to the drop shipping facilities. And I've seen a lot of growth in this type of offering for the home roasters. And then of course, e-commerce, you need to start entering this space, learning how to do a shop yourself, learning how to use this software, because there's a lot of opportunity in the e-commerce as well, not only to sell your products, but also to create front stores for other people. And then a last resource I'd like to give you is this ShipBob. This is a service where if you have goods, you send them there and they fulfill for you. So let's say that you have a front store, you make a sale, then you create an order for ShipBob to fulfill, and they charge you for every order that they fulfill. So these are ways to generate a drop shipping business remotely without you having to be here to put that bag into an envelope and ship it, right? They do all that for you. And just for you to take a look and explore what these services are about and try to understand what other things are happening that can make business possible. So that would be it for me.
Thanks, Stephanie. And maybe we can ask a question on behalf of our audience and those who are not familiar with this concept of drop shipping. Could you just explain actually what that is, how it works?
Yeah, drop shipping is the process of basically fulfilling an order. So fulfilling an order means, okay, I have like the part where I sell, right? And then that part ends when I receive an order. And then the order fulfillment is what I need to do to complete that order and send the product to the customer. So basically a drop shipping service is they have a warehouse space where you send your products. So you send your products on a pallet. So let's say I'm selling pounds of green coffee, right? And then that's my front store and I'm selling individually packed pounds of green coffee for home roasters. So then when I get an order on my website, I take that order and I send it to ShipBob because I already sent them the product. So I would send them a pallet with boxes, let's say with 48 pounds each box, and I can stack maybe, let's say 30 boxes on a pallet, right? So they take all that inventory under your name, they assign it a SKU, and then you say, okay, I sold 3 of these pounds to Claire, okay? And here is Claire's information. So what they do is they take your order and they say, okay, 3 pounds to Claire, okay. They put them in a box or in a bag or whatever. They print the shipping label and they deliver this to the courier, meaning FedEx, UPS, USPS, whatever courier you're using. And then the shipping or the courier takes it to Claire. Basically, that's how it works. So what they do for you is all the work of fulfilling every order that you send them.
Great, super relevant for the audience members who might not be familiar with this, because it sounds like an incredible service for those who are maybe not able to do that all of in-house. So I'd like to close with the last question from me, and then we have quite a few questions from the audience. So this one for you, Joel, I would love for you to specify, when it comes to youth engagement and youth-run companies, what are some of the kind of challenges that you see them facing, or what are the errors that you see young entrepreneurs consistently making in this sector that you'd like to kind of have the audience steer clear of, let's say?
Yeah, I think number one, I would say there's, especially in the coffee sector, there's different requirements from quality things you have to fulfill. One of the key things lately highlighted, like books, accounting books. We are interested in studying businesses, but sometimes we don't have the accounting books, or that's just on a financing side. But on the other side, we do not fulfill one of the key aspects of the business, such as if there is specific quality requirement as you want to export coffee, you have to ensure that you know them and you fulfill them. So that is part of the business knowledge. I think we need to get more training. I'm glad ITIS already is offering great materials to learn more about all of those stuff. So those are the key challenges we're facing, but we're glad there is already materials and resources for us to consult and know. And the other thing is probably, I think mainly that making sure we know what's required to do the business, and ensuring. So we kind of mentioned about financial resources like cash or any other resources, but I think as we continue to see people engaging the youth, there is, I think, great opportunities, great resources out there. It's more of us getting out there and search for those opportunities. Like Stephanie said, I think on the financial aspect of things, we say we lack capital and financial resources, but I'm sure if we keep looking, there is there. So what matters is having that idea and that willingness to do things, and seeking that knowledge required to fulfill all the requirements of the business. I would say those two things: financial side and the knowledge required to do business, but as well as there is definitely opportunities for us and resources to consult to tackle such challenges.
Yeah, definitely. So really it comes down to the business fundamentals, let's say. So Stephanie, what are your thoughts on this? How do we, ensure that youth that are engaging in the sector aren't making, the same mistakes that maybe you made at the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, I think what is key is to also know where we are, like when I'm 37 now, so I'm already past the young, what is the, yeah. So usually when you refer to a young entrepreneur or a young person in something, it goes until you're 35, right? That's like what's generally accepted. So what I would say, and in my case, I realized that I wasn't ready to be an adult until I was 25. Before that, you kind of play you're an adult, but it's not so true. Your brain's still developing. You are not in the right mindset to measure risk as efficiently as you do after you're 25. So what I would say is just consider that, okay? When you're young, you're not fully capable of seeing the whole picture when it comes to risk. We measure risk and we see risk in a very different way than when we are a little older. So all the time, always listen as well, learn to listen and learn to ask for advice. I would recommend to have mentors. I always loved having mentors, and I always looked for people who I admired that were doing something that I wanted to do. And I would reach out, like just cold calling out of the blue, just email people. And you would be surprised of how open people are to mentor when they see interest, okay? When you're capable of explaining why you want to do something and they see that you're very oriented to do it and you just want a hand, you just want advice, you just want couple words, or 5 minutes of their time, a lot of people will be open to do that. So look for mentors. That is key. Understand that you're probably not measuring the full picture when it comes to risk, but then there's also this passion, okay? Just put your passion into whatever you're doing. I think that's super key, especially nowadays. As humanity evolves, we're looking into more ways to be happy and feel happy. And I think that is key to life. So don't waste time in things that don't make you feel fulfilled. You need to understand what fulfillment looks to it for you and in your life, and just go for it. Just make it happen.
Yeah, great advice. So both you and Joel are stressing that as long as you have the passion, you have the desire to be in the copy sector, that there's skills, resources, training programs, materials that can help you get the rest down, but you need to have that initial passion and drive. So I think that's a great uplifting note to end this first session or section on. So I just like to go to some audience questions. First one that came through the chat box from Kasahun is really asking about the specialty coffee. So he or she, I shouldn't assume, says there's not much price difference between the specialty coffee and others in the place where they are. What should be done in order to make sure that they can capture the fair price for the farmers who are trying to keep the quality high? So Joel, maybe I'll go to you first.
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're seeing the same. I think one of the cooperatives we work with are already complaining about the same thing. We are putting more efforts to produce this good cup of coffee, this special coffee, but we don't see buyers rewarding that. They are still paying the same as commercial grade coffee. I think what needs to be done if we want to probably see or continue drinking this good cup of coffee, I think on the buyers side of things, they need to ensure that the efforts putting into producing this better cup of coffee are rewarded. Otherwise, I think low quality grade or commercial grade, that coffee will always be there. But to ensure that we continue drinking this good, best cup of coffee, I think the buyers, I think that in that case, importers can at least ensure that this is reflected to what they're paying to these cooperative or farmers. So that's on one side, because I think if we talk about prices, this is on the importers side of things. Because again, exporters, importers, the biggest players in the chain. If they understand that, if they are willing to reward, I think producers fairly would at least see much more efforts and continuation of producing specialty coffee. Otherwise, we risk having everyone doing commercial grade or low grade coffee. But I think the solution, I don't have a solution now, but I think it's more of continuing advocating for producers and ensuring that even consumers know, if you drink a cup of coffee, know, okay, this is coming from farmer Damien, as an example, a farmer producer in Rwanda. And probably with that, we would see a difference in quality, and we would see that the price is better for producers and exporters at the same time, since probably everyone involved in the sector will be informed of the efforts and would test a good cup of coffee at the end of the time. Yeah, that's what I would say would be my answer to that question.
Thanks very much, Joel. So I have a Spanish question, or a question in Spanish, I should say, for Stephanie. So first off, pardon my Spanish, I'll do my best. And then if you can answer in English, and our translators can translate back into Spanish. So, ¿cómo afrontar el tema de migración y cómo creen que eso impacta en la cadena de café, sobre todo en origen, y cuál sería una propuesta de cambio hacia las nuevas generaciones en origen, de modo que no emigren?
Bueno, now my brain switched to Spanish. Oh my gosh. Well, I think the immigration problem, it's hard to tackle as an isolated problem, because it is not an isolated problem. It is just the consequence of several social issues going on that include lack of employment, lack of opportunity, lack of access to education, services, etc., and violence and poverty in overall, right? So it's hard to say that, okay, we're going to create a proposal to tackle immigration from this point of view, because it's not realistic. It requires a lot of effort in a lot of fronts, mainly government-based solutions, right? And also international commerce-based solution, because, for example, Guatemala and Central America are mainly agricultural, right? Are agricultural countries. And our main income comes from exporting agricultural products. But what are we doing to increase that market share, or to make that a more sustainable business, not only for a few people, but for more people? Like there's an equality breach there that also, again, is not unique to our countries. And that's what we need to know. Here in the United States, that breach exists as well. It exists everywhere. So I would say probably Europe is like, the gap might be like this, right? You kind of like, meh, yeah, there is, but it's not as noticeable, because the baseline has access to a lot of like the basic things. But now we're seeing the problem of immigration in Europe as well, with a lot of people immigrating due to war, due to other political issues in other places, and there is poverty as well. So this is not a unique challenge. This is a challenge that just comes attached to the capitalism system we live in. And it's like that, right? So once we set that base and we understand that it's not an isolated problem, we can also see that the only way to, well, that first of all, it has to be tied to high level decisions. It has to be a thing managed at political level, starting at political level, and also on a commercial level. But then we have the situation of, okay, how do we actually ensure that people don't stop caring for their farms? And that can only be through fair markets, fair, like a more fair exchange. The problem with the fair exchange is that it cannot be done at a small farmer level, right? If we talk about direct trade is virtually impossible between one small farmer and one small roaster. It can't happen, it cannot. Why? Because there's so many challenges to bring that coffee from one side to the other that it's impossible. Or if they manage to do it, it will be super expensive and most of the money will go to just the logistics, right? Instead of the value for the farmer and the value for the roaster, you will spend three times more in the coffee, but 2/3 will go to logistics. So it's not sustainable. It's not possible. It's not realistic. So what we need to understand is, how can we change that? How can we engage? And the answer just will come from us, I would say. We need to change our mindset, stop thinking just about business as business, start thinking about social entrepreneurship. And that's why I consider myself a social entrepreneur, is because in my ventures and what I've done, I've always tried to generate social impact through what I'm doing. So I think that's the best way. If you want to learn more about social entrepreneurship, as I said, I referred Acumen, I put the link there. That's a wonderful resource, but I'm sure in every country, there's going to be organizations teaching about social entrepreneurship. Start there, start with what you can do at your community, for your life, for your family, for your community, for your region, for your country. And then we'll start thinking creatively on how to tackle this, because just coming with a plan, I could tell you whatever, but it's not going to be actually a solution. I think a solution needs to be bigger than that and involve more people.
That's great. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, that was a big question and you handled it very well. So I know we're over time, but we have just 2 more quick questions. So we'll go 5 minutes past the time. So the first one, I'd like to go back to you, Stephanie, and ask briefly. We had a question from the audience. They said they were bad at applying for grants. So do you have any strategies, or how have you best portrayed your business when applying for grants? What's worked for you?
Okay, there's a technique in the learning process, that's called deliberate practice. Okay, deliberate practice is trying to practice those things that are hard for you. Usually what happens with grants and all this is just they have a structure and they have like very basic rules, because they have so many applicants that they need to have a way to kind of sieve, like the bulk of the applications that won't be a good fit and try to get the good ones. So just keep doing it. Once you do it enough, you'll find that they all have kind of like a structure, and you will understand and crack the code. Basically, you'll understand and you'll say, oh yeah, now I know, and you'll have all the documents ready. So at the beginning, they can be overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. It's just like, wow, so much to apply for this. And I have to get so much paperwork, fill out so many things, write so many things. But once you do it once, the next time it will be easier, and the next time will be easier, and the next time will be easier. And just get ready to hear a lot of no's, okay? If you're a person who with the first no gets like, oh, down, pretty discouraged, I mean, you need to change that, because you will hear a lot of no's until that yes comes. And just know that for every 10 applications, one will say yes. You're working for that one, but you need to put in 10, okay? So don't get discouraged, go for your 10 and you will get that one.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yes, I think part of being an entrepreneur is getting prepared to hear lots of no's. Maybe Joel, you've also felt that as well in your career. So the last question for today goes to you, Joel. It's actually a question on collective bargaining for cooperatives. So we have Benson who asks, are there cases or case studies, pardon me, on collective bargaining for cooperatives that you could refer people to or that you know of?
None I know for now, but I think what we're trying to do now is by creating this strong network of young people, educated young people, educated farmers, we're raising their voices so that they can be heard. I think with these associations or cooperative, especially when you join this force together with that good level of education, you know what you're doing. I think the idea is to ensure that our voices can be heard. And I think we haven't done anything as of today, but we're seeing people now starting to listen to us. When we knock to any door, they open doors for us and they listen to our ideas. So that doesn't probably mean it's a collective bargaining, but at least we hope in the future, in the coming days, we'll be able to speak up and our voices will be heard when it comes to negotiating or bargaining, because we'll be strong together as a community or as young people who really started doing something that is tangible and that is clear to today. So what we're seeing now is people opening doors for us, listening to our ideas, and hopefully in the future as well, we'll see more things happening as we join in forces together. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that, Joel. And yeah, Benson mentioned he appreciates the honesty there. And I mean, there's of course still work to be done, but I think the kind of overarching message that I've at least taken away from what you guys have said today is the passion is really the starting point. And if you have that and the drive and the motivation and the power to pursue past maybe lots of no's and lots of failed grants, that you will get there. And it's all about, finding these networks, learning from others, identifying mentors who can support you and help you through the journey. And of course, leveraging tools that can also support you in getting to where you're going. So I think this has been a super insightful session. I've learned so much, so I hope our audience has too. So with that, I wanted to say thank you so much to both Joel and Stephanie. Do you guys have any last closing remarks before we let you go? Any takeaway points that you wanted to share? Maybe, Joel, you first.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thanks a lot for having us. I think great questions. I salute you for all the good questions and challenges you've given me so far. I think it's been a learning opportunity for me as well, being here. So thank you for organizing, and I look forward to learning more in the upcoming sessions next week. And so thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joel. Stephanie, any parting words?
Yeah, I just would like to say that you have a wonderful community going on. I hope a lot of people today join the J community in case you have not joined yet. And I would just say, just know that entrepreneurship, social change, creating new and more sustainable revenue, it's not going to be easy, right? It's just like a roller coaster, just like life. Life is never like all happy or all sad, right? It has like these waves, and we have to enjoy those waves. We have to enjoy the ride. We have to know that one year it's going to be wonderful. Maybe the next year is not going to be so amazing. And we just need to be able to enjoy that, because that's what life is. If there wasn't a struggle, we wouldn't be as happy when we get a win, part of also appreciating the good times is having had to go through bad times. So just enjoy that, get your support network, work with them, be committed to your network as well. Take from your network, but also give back. That is key. Whenever you can help, you need to help, because other people can benefit from what you know, from what you've done, from your experience, or just from being there for someone. So keep going. There's a lot of opportunity in the coffee sector. It's a passionate one. As Joel was saying, I say that everybody who gets in coffee it's just hard to leave. Once you're in, you can't get out of it. So just enjoy it. Welcome to the coffee world for those who are not there yet but want to be in. It's a wonderful world. It's a very passionate world. It's filled with wonderful people. And I'm looking forward to meeting you and seeing you more often in this coffee community.
Thanks, Stephanie. So great parting words. Thanks to you both. So thank you for everyone who joined today. I just want to close this also saying thank you to our great interpreters who are here. We have Tomedes and Raquela. So thank you, or Raquel, sorry. So thank you so much to them for being a part of this. And thanks to the Alliances for Action team at ITC and Julia and Christina, who've also been facilitating the sessions. So before I let you go, we'll all look forward to welcoming you for our session next week, where we'll be covering another topic at the same time. So you've already registered for it. Please feel free to also share these webinars with others in your network that you think can benefit from the content. And yeah, we're really looking forward to all the experts who are going to be taking part in the series over the coming 2 months. So with that, yeah, Julia, do you have any closing remarks? All good.
No, just thanks everybody, and especially the panelists. I'm very inspired myself, but yeah, no, thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. And we'll see you then next Wednesday at 4:30 European time, check your local time, for another exciting session on youth in the coffee sector. So thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your morning or afternoon. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.